Hello and welcome back to the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Dirk Friel. He is the co-founder of TrainingPeaks. I'm sure that most of you who are in my audience have heard of this amazing platform before. If you haven't, go check it out if you are anything in the coaching world. Dirk is a really awesome guy, obviously very smart, very dedicated, been doing this for literally a quarter of a century, 25 going on 26 years, started back in the late 90s. It's an entrepreneurial story, it's a family story, it's a leadership story, and it's a really good one. So thank you so much for being here. Really quick, before we get into the show, though, make sure to check out the show notes. Episode 200 is coming, and I would love to get your feedback and ideas on what that episode should be. There's a few options and things that I've laid out, but if you also have another idea, throw it in there. Check out the show notes for any of the Training Peak stuff, and then ways to support the podcast. All right, I will let myself now be exited out of making this intro, and without further ado, I want to introduce you to Dirk Friel.
Yeah.
October we got here. So it's almost a year now. It's crazy. Time goes by super fast.
I used to race around there way back
Yeah,
in the
pro cycling
90s.
days.
Yeah, the real days of racing. Yeah, it was like all of March we were in California, like city to city every weekend, one in the next, all the way through
Yeah.
Redlands. And one year I did tour Malaysia in February and we flew to Redlands from Malaysia.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was like a real deal back then.
Yeah. So Redlands is a little different. Reading. You have been to
No, I know.
Reading?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We
Cool.
would we would do like northern all the way down
Yeah.
south and yeah, Merced and kind of everything in between. And yeah, like where Levi's Grand Fondo is.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have racing up around there again, like March, April time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
good times.
Yeah. How many years did you partake in the professional cycling scene?
Oh man, I was like 12 years. So turned pro in 92. I was in Belgium for 5 years, and that was my third season in Belgium when I turned pro. Um, yeah, so good number of years, but a whole different style of racing, and
Yeah.
didn't have the internet and didn't have cell phones, and I called
Yeah.
home once a month and my mom just cried on the payphone from
Mm.
Belgium. So yeah, it was different times.
Yeah, no kidding. I've gotten to know Phil Guyman over the years, and
Yeah.
I asked similar to his story, and he was just sharing very similar things. Call home once a
Mm.
month, kind of go around and sleeping on
Oh man.
surfing couches and stuff like that. Very different time. You're more of an athlete than, I guess, less social media focused.
Yeah. Yeah, actually living like a monk, like a true monk.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Dirk. Is that how I pronounce your name? Is it Dirk?
Yeah,
Dirk.
Dirk.
Dirk. Okay, awesome. How
Yeah.
do I say your last name?
Friel.
Friel. Dirk Friel. And it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
Danish. Is that correct?
I mean, it was O Friel, a little more Irish, I guess, Scottish.
Okay.
They took the O off, and then Dirk, Scandinavian too. So there's a lot of Dirks in Belgium, but the farther north you go, the more Dirks you run into.
Yeah.
So definitely in Belgium, when I was there for 5 years, they'd see my name like Dirk de Friel, Dirk de Friel, and but I'm like, no, 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 I don't speak your language.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'd add a DE. Like I don't have a D Dirk de Friel, but like
Mm,
on results pages, they would add a DE as if I was like a local. I always thought that was kind of cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is cool. So you traveled quite a bit, but where did you grow up? What's home for you?
Yeah, I mean, grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and am only an hour south now in Boulder, Colorado. So really grew up on the Front Range between the mountains and the plains, and every day you can choose whether to go climb or ride the wind.
Yeah,
So yeah, grew up right here. Yeah, native Coloradoan.
that's awesome. Did you think when you were younger, getting into the sports world and trying to figure out what life looked like, did you think that you would always come back and settle into the Front Range or in Colorado again?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like never a question in my mind. I never thought of going anywhere else, unlike my daughter, that's just like, get me out of here. I'm going to New York City.
Yeah,
So I'm not a big city guy. I'm not really an East Coast guy. I love racing on the East Coast and Philly and tour West Virginia and Tour de Pont and all that fun stuff back then. Um, but I always gravitated to coming back to Colorado. So yeah, it's just always a natural fit for me to end up here after, cycling so many years.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a beautiful place. I grew up in North Carolina, so definitely on the East Coast, more of the West Virginia type mountains. Grew up in
Yeah.
right around Asheville, and
Yeah.
sadly, I didn't know even that the cycling world existed until I got much older, which is a bit of a bummer.
Well, it's gotten real popular around there now. It's great cycling, great community, and
Oh
that whole
yeah,
Greenville and all around there is just kind of a hot spot, for sure. So it's good to see that's evolved.
yeah, yeah. No kidding. Yeah, was born in Brevard, and then years later, after I had moved out, went to college and stuff, my buddies brought me back, and they're like, "Oh, this is like mountain biking capital of the East." I was
Yeah.
like, I had no idea, and it's just I did my first race out there, and it was amazing. Swank 65,
Nice.
if you've ever heard of it. But yeah,
No.
super cool. But cool, man. Well, Dirk,
Yeah.
officially, just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on and looking forward to diving into your story. I don't know if you know much about this podcast, but the focus is for me, I just want to get to know the person on the other side of the table and hopefully ask some questions that you've never heard before. So,
All
the
right.
first question that I would love to
Mm.
ask you is from your perspective, who is Dirk?
Ah. Oh man, I'm definitely kind of an adventurer at heart. I mean, when I was 19, I dropped out of school and got a one-way ticket to a country I'd never been before, which was Belgium, but it's all I ever thought of from age 12 on. So always kind of like these visions of going to far off places and just taking it on. So I guess adventure continues through today. I love backcountry skiing. It's kind of 6 months of my life. Every year is adventuring in the backwoods and going to far off places, Alaska, Norway, Europe, backyard here in Colorado, just going for adventure. So I guess that's in my DNA, of just kind of getting out there and off the beaten path and finding new places.
Hmm.
It's kind of like what drives me for sure. I think that leads into Training Peaks too. There's just the thing didn't exist, no such type of service existed, and that just kind of bled into my, I guess, pursuit in life, on the career side of things as well.
Yeah. So you said it's in your DNA. Is that the DNA given to you by your mother and father? Like, were they very
Mm.
much the outdoor type as well?
Uh, Both as athletes, but also again as entrepreneurs. Looking back, I was born in Indiana, but after 6 months, we just drove out in the Volkswagen van and made a life in Colorado. So I'm thankful for that, and how things have turned out. So I guess that was the first thing they did. And then just being entrepreneurs. My father was a high school teacher, coached football and track, and one day just told me he quit his job and bought a running store, like the local running shop in town in the 80s, which is just like, what? We
Yeah.
have a running store now? And this is when triathlon was picking up. So then he became a triathlete. My mom became a triathlete. And then we had the world's first triathlon store ever. Like my dad bought a bike shop next door and tore down the wall, and it was a triathlon store and way ahead of its time and probably
Yeah.
still shouldn't even exist today. But it was a failure, but
Yeah.
it was an adventure
Sure.
along the way. Um, and so my mom left corporate America, became more of a consultant on the side. We
For
we
this
owned
business
races
or
for this business and others, and we owned races as well. We had a marathon. My dad owned the Rawhide Marathon in northern Colorado, which is no longer around. And at one time, we had the world record. The wheelchair world record was set on this course because you went from basically the Wyoming border, a straight line down the frontage road of I-25 down to Fort Collins, Colorado. So it was downhill tailwind.
wow.
Anyway, so yeah, they were definitely adventurous, doing out of the norm businesses. And then my dad, decides to become a coach and an author, and basically one of the first, ever,
Hmm.
building a for-profit coaching business starting in the 80s, for cyclists, triathletes, and runners. And, taking the leap and leaving the store and selling it and, taking on a new challenge. So I guess I didn't see anything wrong in taking on wild challenges and just going after, some wild vision. So I guess that is going back to the DNA from my parents as well.
Hmm. Do you have siblings, or is it just you?
No, no, yeah, I'm the only one.
You're the only one. So, how do you think that that influenced, obviously, not just your future trajectory, but like your business acumen, your leadership ability, your how you're
Mm,
now a father and a leader in a company like Training Peaks that has a long tenure. We'll get into that, but how has that
yeah,
influenced those areas?
I know. We all have blind spots. We don't know what we don't know. But I do know that I don't have that traditional corporate background or the MBA, hanging on the wall. I have that real life experience knowing the customer, I think is where my strong suit is. But I definitely have blind spots on the business side of things. So I've always kind of tried to surround myself with other folks that have those experiences, that have product background, that have managerial skills. So thankfully, along the way, we built a great team within Training Peaks, and it's lasted a long time. Uh, so yeah, I think I guess knowing that we all have those weaknesses. And I think that comes from being a coach as well. You analyze an athlete and where they're going and what goals they have, but yet they have weaknesses and limiters that are preventing them from reaching those goals. And certainly in business, I have those. And so I always say, I need to hire people smarter than myself, right? So
Yeah.
I'm no longer the president of Training Peaks. I was once, but yet, that technical side is not in my background. So it's wonderful having, people that can fill that gap. Um, Starting Training Peaks, certainly I played every role in the business other than being a software engineer. But luckily, I had a co-founder that was. So we played off each other and we played every role in the business. And you eventually have to give up what you were the world's best at. At one
Hmm.
time I was the chief marketing officer, and no way in hell could I play that role today. So you have to like swallow your pride and move on and change, evolve, adapt is always something, I guess in my DNA as well, that I've always tried to live by.
Yeah. So you said that your dad obviously was an entrepreneur. He went from, high school teacher coaching to, hey, I bought a store. There's other things it sounds like he tried and did that you probably haven't even mentioned yet. For the successes and failures that you were able to witness from a pretty young age, which of those do you think stand out to you the most as guiding lights for what you would do and who you would become?
Yeah. Ooh, guiding lights. I guess being authentic, it's really your why. It's kind of like if you live your why, you will be authentic. It will shine through. It will be successful. Success, whatever comes with success, hopefully, comes with that. So I think being authentic first. So I think I saw that certainly in my father being an endurance athlete at heart, leaving, a steady paycheck and pursuing his run of passion, which, led him to buying a store. But then from that, he realized his authentic, I guess, pursuit was really in helping others reach their goals and their dreams. And so becoming a coach was the next kind of stage in his life and evolution of his career. So I think the biggest takeaway for me is just staying authentic, and living that day to day. And then success will come from that.
Mm. So when you started the journey to that would become Training Peaks, obviously, like you're a professional cyclist, your dad was doing some
Yeah.
of the coaching. Did you ever intend for what you're doing now to become the thing that you would do forever?
No, absolutely not. There was just a simple need at the beginning. There was no business plan. There was no raising money. There was no debt. It was literally, I was coaching with my father. I was still racing, coaching on the side with him, and just seeing the big gaps and the defaults in our communications, and how we collected data, how we,
Faxes.
yeah, exactly, how we sent out the upcoming week's training program via fax machine or email attachment. At this time around 95, 97, time frame, you're starting to get workout files from Polar and Garmin didn't exist, but you had SRM, like your rich clients owned SRMs for like $5,000, and
Wow.
you would get email attachments, .srm files. So, we were building a business that was very inefficient to communicate with your customer. Um, and data fragmented all over the place and not pretty charts and graphs like we have today. So it was just that vision, the need for our business to become more efficient and effective and create a better quality service at the end of the day for our clients. And that was the ignition that started Training Peaks, just right there at that moment of like, this is horrible. There's a new thing called the internet. It's now 1999. Let's get with it.
Mhm.
But I had no idea how that would evolve. But we just needed a web-based planning, tracking, analyzing, plan, some type of better way of doing things with a calendar, central calendar. So that's what I started, pitched the idea to my dad, but then, he couldn't really take it anywhere. So I just like, who do I know? And so it just kind of evolved from there. And luckily, just so happened the best man at my wedding and teammate and best friend was a web developer, Gear Fisher. He had a day job, and I pitched it to him, and we just started working on it, late at night, every
Mm.
every night, and it was called sweat equity, the old way of building businesses. And again, no business plan, no long-term plans. We just need to build something for our coaching business.
Mm. So one thing I'm really fascinated with, especially in the business realm, is the ability to communicate between the technical and non-technical co-founder. So there's a level of understanding that engineers have to be able to take the code, especially with traditional, what he was working with. I don't even know what language he was
Yeah.
working with, but to take the ideas of what you are describing and he kind of understands, and then practically putting that into place, there's quite a delta of understanding and skills required, especially with today's technical engineers, to be able to describe what's going on. Did you guys already have such a tight bond because you were the
Mm.
best man to be able to have that communication? And is that communication harder to have today when you guys are casting a vision that engineers will now implement?
Oh, well, going back to the beginning, communication was not an issue. We definitely had great, we saw eye to eye on a lot of product decisions, I'd say. He was definitely a product guy and still is to today. That is Gear Fisher. I think what's great though at the very beginning is we effectively started with a prototype. We had my father's books, which just had graphs and charts in them. Like, okay, there it is on the piece of paper right there. Everybody's reading this book. Like that's kind of a master plan. Let's start from there.
Mhm.
But then luckily along the way, before, we had the web-based app, my dad used a FileMaker Pro and just a desktop, software app, which is a calendar scheduling system. And he created his own workout menus. So in this FileMaker Pro, he had workout menus and he could click and drag onto Wednesday and, create the week's training and put in the volume and the notes. And then that would spit out a file that he could then fax. So we basically started with what he developed that we were using in the coaching business in this FileMaker Pro app. And then Gear just took that as like, oh, that's the prototype. I can re-engineer that into the web. So that's what kick-started it all. And so I think immediately right off, we had something to replicate. So it wasn't just a blank piece of paper. And I had to try and communicate to Gear like, well, we have these workout menus and blah, blah, blah. But Gear knew the book. He knew coaching. He knew as an athlete what our coaching business looked like. Um, but he also realized on the other side of it was the athlete. And that's maybe where I was weak. Like, what is the athlete viewing and what's their experience like? So he brought
Mhm.
that strength to our team of like building that athlete interaction, which is a blind spot for me at the time. But he also realized, hey, these athletes are using devices now, Polar and SRM, like I mentioned, were some of the first few devices that athletes were buying. So let's figure out a way to upload those files into this calendar. And I definitely had that as like a vision, but I didn't realize it was like so close at hand. It's just nobody had done it before. Up until
Mm.
we had done it, we were the very first place you could ever render and look at a heart rate file or a power file in a web browser. Like we were the very first. We didn't patent it, but no one even actually saw the value in it. It was so funny. We showed
Wow.
so like a major device manufacturer what we did, and their response was nobody looks at their data after they train.
That's such a quintessential startup, great golden plaque story for years to come
Like,
afterwards.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Look at this. And luckily, we had coaches on our side, and coaches wanted to look at the data after the person trained. And so they got it. So they would effectively ask or demand that their athletes, upload their data, which was very painful. It wasn't Bluetooth. It wasn't, today you hit
Oh, wow.
stop and it goes to 10 different websites or apps. Back then you had to plug it in, get your, it's a whole lengthy 8-step process to get it into TrainingPeaks. Um, and actually the pros were the last to catch on. The pros were like the last people to actually do it. You think they would be the first, but it was the age group athletes that were paying for the coaching and those coaches demand it. But the pros, it was just a status symbol. They had an SRM on their handlebars and made them look cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Why do you think it was the pros last? Is it just because they don't? I mean, they're not early adopters. Like, what is the thought behind that? You think?
Yeah. I mean, they were successful with doing the old world ways of training. So why try something radical?
Mm.
I think I'm also referring to cycling for the most part. I wouldn't generalize that on the triathlon market. The
Mm.
triathletes at the time, there was no tradition. Like they were developing the sport, in the moment. So we definitely early on built the business on the sport of triathlon. They were the first to really be attracted to it. The pro cyclists definitely, again, this lengthy, long tradition of how you train and et cetera. And so they were just looking at the data during their ride, but they didn't really mean much to them afterwards. And at the time, they weren't accountable to the team. At the time, there were no high performance staff, if you can believe it,
Mm.
employed by professional cycling teams. So the athlete would just go home after the race and they were accountable to themselves. And nobody was asking for how their training was going or giving them workouts for tomorrow. They were just, if they had a workout plan for tomorrow given to them, it was by their coach back home. Like there was no connection back to the team.
Mm.
So I think, cycling was kind of late to the game, if you will. Triathletes were first.
Hmm. So I'm sure you understand this even more than I do. So I say it from almost a place of ignorance, but I do know that every person is so radically different in terms of their ability to absorb training, the
Yeah.
methods they use for training. There's obviously the mental aspect of it. For you as a company that you're building out essentially KPIs for an individual
Mm.
person to know how they're doing. How do you even begin to tackle that problem and try to be standardized with creating things like TSS or whatever? Like you guys came up with these different terms and different metrics whenever they can potentially be applied to a person differently. Did you spend a lot of time thinking about like how do we create these things when everyone is so different to create a standard, and is that standard the right standard? Like,
Yeah. We never started out to create a mold. There's not one way to train. From day one till today, we believe in the human. Each human is unique and different, and we believe in the human coach. We believe technology should make that coach better, more efficient. Obviously, from day one, that's what we believed in, like surrounding the coach with technology so they can make better quality decision in the moment. Um, So yeah, I absolutely agree with you that we're not saying this is the way to train. There's no training peaks methodology. You could be a high volume coach or high intensity coach, right? You could be high fat, low fat. Like we're the platform in between. So I think we've played it. We've played. We've tried to be agnostic, both with devices, third party apps that we sync with, but as well with training methodology in general, because you can make a great example for a success story with any methodology. There's definitely trends that go along. We all track training zones. I mean, every coach pretty much understands. Now you might have a 7 zone system or a 3 zone system. That's fine. That works in Training Peaks. But yet both coaches are tracking time and zone to give them some insights into the training. But I think there's some other things that have come along in terms of a little more advanced metrics around normalized power. We roll that up into your training stress score. Training stress score is not the holy grail. Our performance management chart is not everything. It only looks at volume and intensity. It doesn't know if you had caffeine or if you had a bad night's sleep or your stress
Stressed
level,
out.
or
Yeah.
it doesn't know the heat. It doesn't know the humidity. Like, show me a model that's perfect. Like, there is not a
Yeah.
perfect model, right? But this is a very good, I guess, graphical view of that individual. And I hate when people start comparing, their CTL or their TSS or their PMC. I think it's, you can learn from comparison, but you shouldn't strive
Hmm.
to somehow replicate, right? Every individual athlete's pathway towards success is unique to them. Even if two athletes weigh the same, have the same threshold, train for the same event, as you mentioned earlier, they have a different capacity to absorb training on different timelines. And so that subjective side oftentimes needs to override the objective side. So
Mm.
if today we had planned to do 5 hours at 300 normalized power, whatever the heck it is, and you have stress, you didn't sleep well, you're not feeling great, your left calf is tight, hey, let's have another rest day.
Yeah.
That should be the overriding thing, how well the athlete is absorbing the training. So it's that yeah, dynamic, load is ever changing. And so a good coach can help manage that along the way.
Mm.
There's not one training plan for everybody that wants to go a sub 3 hour marathon.
Yeah. We'd all love for that to be the case,
Yeah.
but yeah, it doesn't exist. Like everyone has, yeah, I think it's so cool. Like I love Training Peaks. Obviously, I've been using it for I want to say 4 years now since I've
Awesome.
like got into the sport. My coach was like, "Hey, yep, attached to Training Peaks," and that was
Awesome.
4 years ago. And just to see the genesis in 4 years and how you guys have changed in terms of just from a visual perspective, but it's been pretty cool. I love the new logo for whatever that
Oh,
accounts to.
wow. Yeah, thank you so much. That took months. Yeah, obviously, rebranding is a big exercise. So yeah, I'm psyched it came out well.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, it's really awesome. I just want to say that by the way. I really love it from like a tech perspective. The feel, the angular, like I don't know. It's kind of like the way that it looks. Like it invokes that feeling of like this is a technical
Yeah.
platform. Use with the how you will.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I don't know how many users you guys have. I would assume it's probably more than 150,000. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely a whole lot more, but we don't
Yeah,
go into those
million,
numbers.
10 million. Like of like active users that are using it. How many do you think would say like per month that people that are actively using Training Peaks? If I may ask.
Yeah, we're not going to answer that question, but I mean, definitely, you know, thousands and thousands of coaching businesses. Really, we definitely focus a lot on the coach. So we think of ourselves as B to B to B to B to C.
Mm-hmm.
So supporting that coach, in your example, the coach brought you on board to Training Peaks,
Yeah.
and so we service that coach again from day one until today. We haven't flipped or pivoted or any of that. So supporting endurance coaches, and that I think that's broadened. We were cycling, triathlon, running, but now we see great success stories in all kinds of other sports. I mean, alpinism, people summiting Mount Everest that are being coached through Training Peaks. So there's all kinds of great individual adventures that people are taking on where they need expert guidance and instruction, outside of the normal, endurance sports, if you will. Now we're seeing canoeing and kayaking and Nordic
Powerlifting.
sports. And so it's really fun to see other sports kind of gravitate and find how structured training can benefit their sport.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that too is from your perspective and your ability to aggregate and look at the training data of
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people in like the endurance sports that you really know, would you say
Yeah.
that people are in the aggregate overtraining or
Hmm.
undertraining more?
It tends to be overtraining, but it's more from what I see, it's more about short-term gains via high intensity, um, more so than people overtraining because of volume.
Really?
Now, obviously, as we go into ultra running, that might change. We're seeing, growth in ultra running. It's not, it's not just about volume in
Yeah.
ultra running. You do need intensity as well. But I think majority of endurance athletes tend to what happens is they see great gains early on, and high intensity is the fastest way to get those gains. They
Mm,
continue at the high intensity. For example, racing every single week indoors on the virtual platform of your choice. Hopefully it's TrainingPeaks Virtual, but doing weekly racing all winter long, but yet your A priority race is next June. Hence, you're going to plateau come April and not improve and might even be worse come June. That's the mentality of an athlete, is to get after it. That's awesome. That's, what makes us great.
hmm.
Also, the social side of it, showing up to the virtual ride or the coffee shop ride, whatever it may be, and do the Wednesday worlds, that happens 12 months a year. That's great. That's like motivating, but it's not the way to continually improve. And gaining fitness is not a linear, it goes in cycles, and you kind of have to understand your own personal cycles and how to work them. And that's where the third, the objective, coach can come into play that has experience to help you navigate that and give you confidence to hold back
Mm.
and not race every single week. But majority of athletes are just going to go too hard. They go out on an easy ride with good intentions, but they go with their buddy, and all
There's a
of a
lot of
sudden
memes about that. Yeah.
they're in zone three, they're in entire ride, and they just don't, you got to go easy in order to go hard. And so the polarization, there's something there. So that's kind of my gut feel and what I've seen.
Yeah. So with the lost my train of thought. What I was going to ask because that was
Yeah.
such a good point. Um, oh yeah. So with the amount of people that are using your platform and the amount of data that you have, again, I know that you guys do a lot of emphasis on making sure that as best as possible you educate the coaches and educate the
Mm.
people using Training Peaks to stay within zones, kind of around that. But I mean, it's obviously a broad form of communication that you guys have to have. So I'm curious, what kind of pressure or what kind of motivation do you guys feel to let people know when you see or there's a trend that's maybe not a healthy one and you can see it in the data? Like, are there any of those instances where you start to see things that maybe people wouldn't see because you have such a large data set that you then feel the need to communicate?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, I think we try and highlight in our communication smart training practices. We try to let our customers speak for themselves. Again, like going back to the agnostic, there's no Training Peaks method, but we'll have on experts on my podcast or within our blog, et cetera, that will point out their point of view and what they're seeing. And so that is therefore educating our customers that follow that content. So I kind of like to leave, the coaching methodology up to our coaches to kind of like debate amongst themselves. I'd rather have that debate come through amongst our community of coaches, rather than stating like this is the way,
Hmm.
because science is ever evolving. We're always seeing new trends, new ideas. Obviously, nutrition is a big thing now. You know, whatever 100 grams an hour plus, right? We're reading about now that that's not for everybody. I'm not going to come out and say to all Training Peaks people, hey, Tadej Pogacar, we see, does 150 grams an hour and wins every race he starts. You should all be doing 150 grams an hour. Like, no, what can we learn from that? I think we try and like process what we're seeing, and have the coaches communicate that in terms of the lessons learned around nutrition, for example, and what can we all learn from this? And yes, we can all bump it up probably from what we were doing 15 years ago. I was racing on 40 grams an hour and definitely should have been, you know, two, three times that. So lessons learned along the way. But again, I like our coaches to tell those stories and to spread their experiences.
Mm, good answer. I have one more kind of technical question, then I want to go back to a little more interpersonal stuff, but I'm enjoying geeking out on this.
Yeah.
But from your experience, how do I phrase this? I'm gonna actually come back to that question.
Yeah.
So if you were to explain in kind of one sentence or give a descriptor in one sentence of your experience in the past 26 years with this company,
Oh,
how would you can that?
my experience with Training Peaks in the last 25 years, my experience is like, it still feels like a startup in a good way, in that I still see product 5 years out, in my head. You're always striving. There's always new opportunities. There's new customer bases. There's new devices. I mean, I just got a new time wear device to track, you know, respiration. You have the core body temperature. There's always new technology, new science, new ways of looking at things. Now, we obviously recycle through old ideas that come back up, but yeah, I guess I would say in a motivating way, it still feels like a startup because it's still just like excited to work
Mm,
every day,
yeah,
just always fun new stuff to work on.
yeah. Well, so in a startup, obviously there's a million different things that you can work on, but what matters is the things that you choose to put energy
Yeah.
into. So with a company that has 1,000 employees and everybody's got suggestions and the industry's saying to do this, how do you choose to like what vision to cast and what executive orders to enact?
Yeah. I mean, first it starts with the voice of the customer. Certainly starts there. Then you start to see the trends. Um, and then you develop the roadmap from there. Um, so yeah, I mean, you obviously have to say no a lot more than you say yes. There's always a million other things we could be pursuing, but like for whatever reason, voice of customer is saying this, we're seeing these trends, technology is at this point or whatever, how does that all align with business plans? What are people willing to pay for, not pay for? All that comes into account when you develop the roadmap, and they're not always, hits. I mean, but you learn from hopefully producing stuff, getting it out there, getting feedback, and replicate, and refining from there.
Yeah. Hmm. So along those lines, going back a little bit to the interpersonal leadership stuff, you've co-founded this company in the very beginning with your best friend, and then your dad was involved. So I know just from past experience, partnerships can be like a marriage, and they can make or break, and oftentimes they break. So, what were some of the things, challenges, and positives of working with your best friend and father to grow a company to what it is now? I mean, 26 years is a huge thing.
Yeah. Overall, very positive. I still, Gear is no longer a part of Training Peaks, but he's a product guy and he had a vision for a whole new product, and it's called On Form, and it's a wonderful video analysis, app, really popular in golf. So it was awesome working with him and like staying, I mean, throughout all the years, it's fun at like, it could be fun at 2 a.m. to be like texting back and forth and being like, dude, can you change that from green to red or this line to that. And,
Mm.
that was like the fun days for sure. So really positive energy. I guess like, it's all about the people though. It's all about, getting the right people in and working for the product. So I guess those are always the bigger challenges. It was crazy when maybe our fifth person we hired was somebody we didn't know. Like when you do that first hire and they aren't somebody on your inner circle of friends that you ride bikes with, that's actually scary, and
Yeah.
that's now more and more. I mean, it's both ways. Like you hire people you know already, but you got to put a wide net. And obviously, for the most part, we're hiring people we don't know. They're not our riding buddies, and they don't even live in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest challenge. That was one of the biggest challenges is how do we grow outside of our friends group in terms of staffing?
Mm.
And that was a scary time for sure. And you learn and get better at it.
Is your dad proud of what you've built?
He said, yeah, I mean, he says definite. He is still local here and he helps us on the education side. We have monthly coach networking groups that we have here in the office, and he shows up on those Fridays and wants to network. And that's what gets him going
Yeah.
is learning from other coaches and talking about, what's going on in the community. So he still is involved, and part owner of the company still. So yeah, he's definitely, I think, still really proud.
Yeah. How has it stretched you in a way that you thought you may not be able to handle leading?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you start a business as an entrepreneur, you're on the technical side. You're not a manager or an entrepreneur, really. So I guess that managerial side was the the blind spot, you know, managing, hiring, firing, whatever it may be, HR decision makings, like every single week there's another HR decision to be made, right? So I think the whole HR side of things is obviously if you're starting out as a pro cyclist and you're that technician or that tactician, that coach in the moment. You love just coaching, you love riding, but now you have to hire and manage, teams. That's definitely the stretch, and so that's certainly where I've grown the most.
Yeah. Mm. Do you think you're a good leader?
Oh man, that's a hard. I let others answer that. I don't know. I think I definitely am authentic, and that's where I try to live these days. I love business development, the biz dev side of things, the marketing side of things. I hope I hold myself back and am not overburdening. I understand like I've been there, done that, but I also know this is a new generation and there's a new crew of leaders here that are leading the marketing and biz dev and every other aspect of the business. And it's theirs to lead and theirs to win or lose. But me as an advisor along the way. So I hope I'm more of an advisor now, and not overburdening the teams.
Mm. Is that hard to do? I mean, because this is your baby,
Yeah,
like this is something. Yeah.
you definitely have, I have the vision, but it's not, obviously it's not going to play out like that. It's just, that's how things go. So it's like balancing all the needs of everybody. Plus the customer is saying something completely opposite of what
Mm.
I believe,
Yeah.
so, I've definitely learned along the way, like my way is not the, shouldn't be the highway.
Yeah. How old is your daughter? And you have just one daughter, right?
Yeah, she's 23, New York City, high fashion, Parsons School of Design.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so she's living that life, and that's awesome to learn from what she's experiencing in the big city.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that, I'm so glad that she's 23 because it's like your age of your company is relatively
Mm,
similar
yeah,
to the age of your daughter. So, you're
yeah.
talking about this area of life where you're trying to pull back a little bit on the business side, kind of let it you guide a little bit less nowadays. You're less hands-on. I would assume that's similar for your daughter to some degree. I don't know what, but I'm curious to know what are the parallels of things that you maybe have drawn in your mind that you see how they have helped influence the decisions or influence the experience over here from over here.
Yeah, I guess you can draw parallels where she's out there making her own decisions. I'd say she's more autonomous than Training Peaks is from me.
Yeah.
I still have my hands in some, I'm still picking weeds here and there and in the weeds, if you will, with some of the teams. And and driving, helping drive some roadmap decision making in different areas. Uh, but I'm also very authentic to that, whereas I'm not authentic to the high fashion world. New York City living. So yeah, I know my place.
Yeah. What is some advice you could give me on being a father?
And how old is your
Not born yet.
child? Oh, okay.
22 weeks. 22 weeks
Really?
gestation. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it just like everything takes on a new perspective. You actually get more motivation, I think. You get more focused. There's a, you know, you're compartmentalizing everything, but you have to keep all the balls in the air, right? So you got to like, when you're focused on this one thing, you really got to focus on that and make the most of that time and energy that you have on the podcast or whatever businesses you're running. So it just gives you more renewed vigor and importance and focus, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I can remember, those days and looking at gear, and he was in the same position as me, having he actually has a 23 and a 25-year-old, like pretty much the exact same thing. We were both like, man, this better make it. I mean, we just like dug in our heels and we were like, this is gonna make it. I mean, there's no second guessing because it had like that's it. Okay, knock on wood, amazing. That's not everybody's story, but it worked out for us or the timing or whatever. But yet at that moment we said, okay, we're going to step in. We didn't raise money at the time. We
Yeah.
just paid ourselves some more money instead of just distributions. We're like, okay, let's give ourselves a salary and let's just try and live on this meager salary, and take it in the chin, but it's going to be successful from here. It's only looking up, and that's luckily how it played out. But it was definitely a lot of risk at the time. It was all on us to make it happen. And now we had a young family to really make it happen. So we never looked back. We just like went after it, and it
Mm.
just made us hopefully more focused.
Yeah. How did that affect like the home life of like how do I allocate time to family? How do I allocate time to this business and how do I keep them together but separate? Because obviously like when you are doing a startup, it's you live and breathe it. You go to bed, hitting the pillow. You're probably thinking about that more often than you should. Like it keeps you up at night. Did you ever
Yeah.
find a way to balance it?
No, I mean at that stage, and it permeates every bit, every minute. So I think you have to choose the right spouse. That's 99% of it, that's
Yeah.
willing to take the journey with you. Absolutely. We owe so much to our wives and our family to allow us to pursue such a crazy, crazy idea that had no precedence. Like there's no reason why it should be successful.
Yeah, no history.
Yeah, there's nothing else that looked like this that had ever been done before, let alone the internet. It was a dot-com bust time frame. So definitely, the family owed them a lot, but it definitely, I remember early vacations and you're on your laptop on the beach, whatever, working and, taking care of customer support tickets, you know? So that was a part of life. But that's just goes with it. If you're taking on
Yeah.
something new, it's risk reward. You can get a paycheck and go work at somewhere and not care about it, and you don't take the job home. You can leave it behind the office walls and get your salary and not worry about it. But if you want to, become the world's best at something, and do something new, that's high risk,
Mm.
but reward has come along the way. So yeah, that's a balance. You choose which pathway you want to take.
Yeah. So like in the early days when you're hiring, employee, I think it was like number 5 or the 5th person on your team, there's still people that like those people are essentially taking a piece of ownership because there's going to be more involved than just probably we give you money. They're probably taking some of that stuff home, I would assume, in the early days. And the ownership, they like really feel that. At
Yeah.
what point does a company get to, and how big does it have to get before that expectation is no longer reality, where you shouldn't have that, and maybe you should never stop having that? But is there a line? Do you understand my question?
Maybe. I mean, you're talking about if, I think if you have a full-time job, that's your number one. You start your number one, your family, all that. But in terms of career path, that's like your number one. So you own some portion of the business. Absolutely. Like that is yours to own and be accountable to yourself and your team. So I think no matter what pathway you take, you should own up and be accountable to your team. And that does oftentimes go past 5 p.m. Like there's times in business of every business where it's the selling season or the busy season, or we got to make this deadline for external customer. And so pressure's on, we're working late to get this done. If you're all accountable to each other, the team is successful, you can rejoice and you can celebrate when you achieve that goal, and take a little downtime. But you should have that trust within the team, and you have those common goals that you're pursuing. And oftentimes that absolutely goes past 5 p.m. You have a full-time job. It's not just checking in, checking out at the coal mine.
Mm,
But yeah, you can grow with that and earn rewards along the way and create a career path from there.
mm. Is it better to have an employee that needs inspiration to take on that like true ownership, or is it better just to hire someone and they already have that and you don't have to worry about it as much, you think?
Oh man, I always felt like you kind of exemplified the next level of your career path before you get that title. Oftentimes that happens. You are playing that role, but you don't have the title yet, or that role, or that position. Um, so I guess it goes with finding people that have the inspiration and can learn. You need to be good at listening, good at learning, adapt, evolve, change, evolve, whatever I said earlier, change, evolve, adapt, along the way is how I've always felt is the best way to succeed in careers. You need to be constantly learning, and evolving, and you kind of take on that next role before you get the title.
Hmm. Good answer. I mean, I like it. I don't know if it's the right answer, the perfect answer. I haven't been in your shoes, but I appreciate it. So what's taking up the most mental bandwidth for you right now?
Oh man, I mean both. I do a lot on kind of the marketing side, PR. I had a great experience going to UTMB in Chamonix the last 2 years, as we've seen growth in ultra. Love working with new sports. It's really refreshing. We're all trying to solve the same thing, like beat the clock, go faster effectively. It's all the same damn thing, right? Get to the
Mm-hmm.
finish line first. So why does every sport look at it differently? They do. And every sport looks at it in a different way, and you learn from different sports. So I think coaches out there that are listening should break out of their norm and communicate or follow blogs or Instagram or podcasts of other sports to see how they're tackling the very same, you know, issues.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So I think working with these kind of emerging markets, if you will, is really fun. Creating partnerships is really fun. And then on the product side, we released TrainingPeaks Virtual, so that evolves every single week. I mean, that product roadmap changes basically every Monday, or there's new releases every Monday. And now we have free Tuesdays. So that's really fun to see people come and enjoy, Training Peaks Virtual. We just released last week My Routes, so you can upload any GPX file, you want and go ride it. Create your own races, group rides, etc. So that's taken up a lot of fun time, just like exploring where can this product go. And it's so fresh. Getting the feedback from the coaches is great. How can we develop an indoor virtual training app to help coaches? Is kind of a first of its kind as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of on the product roadmap, strength, I have a strength coach. It's all delivered through Training Peaks. That's about a year old. That's really fun and cool and evolving. Nutrition side, Fuel In and Food Coach and Hexus and all these apps we're sending data back and forth so they can come up with your meal plan and your ride nutrition.
Yeah.
There's just all kinds of fun. Now we have new beta. It's in beta, but it's a stack chart. Effectively, anything in the .fit file we now display. So any new device that comes out that puts some new metric in the .fit file, we can now display it. So respiration and core body temp and hemoglobin and all that fun new stuff it's like a new sandbox, if you will, to play with.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's beta, not perfect right now, but it's great seeing that data in there, and do we need to have respiration zones now? Timeware says yes. Like, where does that product evolve to? And
Yeah.
do more than just Tour de France riders use it? Like, who knows? We'll start to find out, So that I guess that's where my head is at in terms of like marketing, PR, biz dev, product, supporting the teams.
Yeah. So you don't think you're probably ever going to retire, do you?
My dad hasn't. He still writes and he's involved. He's 80 plus. I think to myself, if I didn't work here or have this position, I'd wake up and do the same thing tomorrow. Like, okay, I wouldn't be in the business, but I'm like,
Sure.
I would still want to interact with these coaches and pursue these different sports and learn from them. And where is science going? What new technology is out there? What new gizmo can I get and play with? What can I learn from this? What coaches are using this? That's just like where my mind is every day. And luckily it plays into my role. So it just matches my lifestyle,
Mhm.
luckily.
Yeah. No kidding. So you mentioned Training Peaks Virtual. When you first came out with it, I forget how long ago it was now. I want to say it was like, what,
November,
months?
almost a year.
Yeah. Okay.
November.
So like a year. So I remember opening it up early then, and I was like, oh, this seems like a copy paste of Zwift. Now, and I'm curious to know, when you guys came out with that, like, what is your relationship with Zwift? And was that difficult to, like, because you're coming out with something that's going to be a competitor, a direct competitor of it? What was that decision-making process like? Did they come after you guys? Is there good relations between you and them?
Yeah. No, I could say that there's a lot of differences between Zwift
I
and
have not
Training
really
Peaks
used it
Virtual.
since a year ago,
Okay.
so I concede, yes.
Yeah. I'd say we have good relations with Zwift. As I said earlier, we want to have that open, agnostic, I guess, platform. And that's another beautiful thing about this industry and the endurance market is a lot of companies that kind of overlap, and our competitors in certain respects do have an open API and they share data. And so I think, early on, Polar and Suunto did not get that. They were closed systems. And then Garmin came out and shook that up and created this Bluetooth technology and was ANT Plus at the beginning, open, communication, APIs. I think that's awesome within our industry. We need to be proud of that and realize that lifts everybody's boats. Zwift is for a lot of folks, but not for everybody. We developed Training Peaks Virtual a lot with a coach in mind and with events in mind, and helping people train for events, and coaches being able to deliver seamlessly, synchronizing zones, workouts, GPX files, recon of rides, allow them to create their own private or public groups, races, race series. We're not even involved, with coaches creating their own events,
Yeah,
and
that's pretty cool.
posting to our calendar. So really, we looked at it as serving the coach and being performance oriented. We started with physics. So George Gilbert, who started Indie Velo, which we acquired, is the founder, effectively of TrainingPeaks Virtual. And he started with the math and did not start at all with the graphics. And you could tell, like, it was amazing math. The physics, the drafting, what side of the wheel you're on matters. Cornering really matters. If you come into a 90-degree turn and you pedal as hard as you can, you will drift wide. And people that are coasting will take the inside line, it will chop you, just like in a criterium. And you come out of that corner and you'll have to overcome a power surge to catch back on to the person that was coasting through the line. But then that person that coasted now has to ramp back up in sprint. So it's very demanding. It's more dynamic. You have to be heads up and to know the wind direction. We have a windsock. You can see the wind direction. You're coming to a turn. You have to think ahead. When I turn, that wind is going to go from a headwind to a side wind. What side of the group should I be on? Positioning really matters. Plus, when you crest a hill and start downhill, you don't just pedal hard. You're going to have to coast because you're going 45 miles an hour, like in the real world. Right. So I think we started, again, George started with the math, the physics, the real world physics. And now we're backing into better and better graphics every single week. The graphics get better. And we've just released new roads about 2 weeks ago called Georgetown, named after George, the founder. It's a criterium course. It's a really cool criterium course. So yeah, I mean, in the industry, we all play together and kind of raise everybody's boats, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for letting me ask the question from a very ignorant standpoint. I didn't know about the physics stuff. That's pretty sweet. It'd be fun to. I was actually thinking for my ride after this, like I was probably gonna go hop on Zwift, but maybe I'll have to go try out
Yeah,
TrainingPeaks
we have these
Virtual.
great 24/7. We have these great pacing groups, so you can choose like, oh, I want to ride about 180 watts, overall average. You'll be in a group, and it's going to be dynamic. You're going to be changing uphill, downhill, cornering, drafting, etc. So your watts are going to fluctuate. It's not going to be a flat 180 watts. So it's going to be more demanding than erg mode, in the sense that you're going, you have these
Over hills
surges.
yeah.
And you have to coast and you have to surge. But overall, you'll average 180 watts. But it's going to be more like going out on the lunchtime group ride. So that's kind of fun to jump in those pace groups.
Yeah, that's cool. A couple more technical questions, and then maybe a few more before I let you go. Do you have a hard cutoff? I know I said it for. No, you're good.
Let's check. I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
Like 15
So
more.
okay, perfect. So AI is obviously shaking up the world. It has an opportunity to obviously influence, I guess, what you guys are doing, and I'm sure you're working on things. But what does a coach offer, in your opinion, that no piece of artificial
Oh,
intelligence could ever replace?
I heard a great quote this last week from a coach, this same type of question. And they said, there are, there's many more unknowns than there are knowns.
Mm,
Currently, state of AI, if it's telling you what to do tomorrow, it's just going off a few inputs of knowns. But there's infinitely more unknowns going into making tomorrow's decision of what you should do than knowns. This is the art and science of coaching. The better you get, the more important a coach becomes or could help you. When you first begin, the thing that matters is consistency. So a $15 a month, whatever app to tell you what to do tomorrow will be successful. You're going to improve. But you will get to a point where that trails off. You start to plateau. How do I break through? Oftentimes a coach could come in and be like, aha, let's do this. And that's going to get you another 10%. Like again, the younger you are in athletic years, the easier it is to unlock these secrets. But too many people get stuck at this third level and they're relying on their own advice. They're self-coached, or they might have the $15 a month, AI plan. But the secret's over here. It's like you didn't cramp because you didn't take in enough sodium. You cramped because the first hour you were like, you had all these surges. You were way above threshold for the first 20 minutes of your 70.3 Ironman, like there can be these little secrets that an experienced coach can unlock for you and like, bam, 10% right there. You just gained 10%,
Mm.
right? So I'm not here to say AI is not going to stick with us and be here, and it's already changing how we do things. We're adopting AI ourselves within Training Peaks, but it's going to be a coach assistant to make the coach unlock some of those secrets, help them see things or trends that they weren't aware of, and to make them smarter in the moment. But human coach certainly right now is by far much, much better than any AI coach. Um, and no Tour de France team is leveraging AI to tell them what to do tomorrow. It's right now it's at the stage of helping them understand what happened today and yesterday.
Mm. So what do you think that the state of the industry as it relates to coaching and
Yeah.
just endurance sport looks like 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah. I mean, we all should be open to it. We should all be looking to leverage it. But I think you need to be careful right now. It's kind of like HRV. Not everybody believes in HRV, but what are the trends? It in a way, it's kind of like that in terms of like, okay, this is a tool. It's a great tool. But I'm not going to put my entire trust in this one tool, right? Or HRV is going to tell me what to do every single day based on HRV. Like it's not that one metric that matters. But I think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, obviously, it's like who even knows what it looks like? The industry is changing monthly, new technology. Um, so I think it's going to play a part of every successful coach's toolbox. It's going to be in there. Um, but again, it's like there's going to be different tools at different times. I don't think there's going to be one overarching AI app thing that takes care of everything. You might still have five different, AI within Training Peaks and this AI over here and this AI over here. Like, and then the coach is like, okay, well, how do I triangulate between these three or four different inputs to come up with what to do tomorrow? I think that's
Mm.
still going to be the case. There's still going to be some of that art of coaching happening because you had the fight with your wife, you have stress at work, and you had a whole bunch of horrible sleep.
Mm.
AI will take into account some of that, but there's still that human element that needs to be the last the last mile is still to be decided upon with that human coach making the right decision for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's interpersonal stuff as well. Like the connection that a human can give another human. I don't know if we'll ever be able to truly replicate. Like it'll be augmented or like a copy of, but kind of how you were saying before, like it's always this kind of prior past knowledge that it's building up and building onto at this point to look forward. Like the communication that can happen between an AI system and a human is only based on whatever's ever been said, but humans can have the ability to create something new, like a new experience, a new understanding, a new level of empathy that I don't think a machine ever will be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say, AI can come back, like you complete your ride, you upload it, AI will come back and say, great job. Coach comes back and says, great job. You just get like a different fuzzy feeling knowing it came from the human. And then you're in the heat of the moment, it's really, really hard, within the race. Maybe that's what pushes you over that. You like that little bit of extra accountability or somebody's looking in on what I'm doing. Oftentimes it's the opposite is what is where the human comes into play. Is like, what the hell? I told you to keep it under 145 heart rate today. You average 155. That is not what I programmed for you. We're redoing today's workout. It's punishment. Like you need that whip as
You're a tough
well.
coach. Yeah.
The AI is always going to appease you. Not always, but right now, AI is always trying to appease you. And you know what? You always, right now, today, are asking the right question. A coach will say, no, it's not your nutrition. You went out too fast the first 20 minutes of your 70.3. That's why you cramped on the, there's these secrets that are obvious and not secret to experienced coaches,
Mm,
but is a complete blind spot to AI. And so again, that whip is also part of the magic as well. Like
mm,
whipping the athlete, saying they went too hard. Most athletes go too hard too often.
yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
if
true.
the AI is always telling you to go hard, you should be questioning that thing, obviously.
And it's weighted more too with the human to human because, like, for someone who's going to tell you, "Hey, you went too hard," there's a level of courage and confidence that is required within that person, as well as rapport for the receiving party to say, like, "Oh, wow, they must have thought about this, or they know what they're talking about, or that seems legitimate." Because the AI system, it's like you said, it's kind of self-inflating
A lot of
at
times,
this point.
a lot of coaches, when they start with an athlete, the athlete will say to them, "But coach, this is too easy." It's like, yeah, we have to take a step back here and build a foundation. We have to build your limiters. We're not going to just repeat the past and work, do what you love doing. Oftentimes when you start with an athlete, they think it's too easy, and they think like they're paying the coach to give them the hardest workout possible. And that's not the long-term view that a human coach will take.
Yeah. Mm.
They're
So
optimizing for 18 months from now, not for next month or next
yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah. Keeping the mindset and the perspective in the correct frame of time is
Yeah.
never
The
an easy thing.
perspective,
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
So it's said that life at the top can be lonely. You are at the top of your company. Who do you talk to? What do you do to find, I guess, community or to combat the lonely feeling of being at the top?
I don't feel that at all.
You don't feel
I
lonely at
don't
all?
want to, I don't want to say we're at the top because I'm that entrepreneur at heart and I'm just like, oh my God, let's keep it going. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like, there's always the risk. There's no given to stay at the top. Right. And so where do I reach out? Again, like going back to the coaching community, it's like, we've started these Friday gatherings in our office for local coaches or coaches that come through town to come in on, one Friday a month, bagels, coffee, a couple hours in our cafe. And those are the special times, going out to the events like Unbound. I went to Unbound, went to UTMB in Chamonix, go to Breck Epic, mountain bike races. Like that's so invigorating and fun to be out there in the moment. Unfortunately, being a .com, an app, you don't interact with your customers every single day. They don't walk in the front door. You don't get to say,
Mm,
how you doing today? Like I miss that. So you get that by going to the events and the training camps. And I love going, like I go to Spain usually every January to, the cycling training camps. And that's invigorating to get to know the pros and the coaches at the top level and what are they working on and how can we get feedback from them. So I think I don't feel lonely. I think there's communities that, I keep a part of, which are very motivating and invigorating.
mm. Who's your mentor? Who do you go to bounce ideas off of? Do you have a mentor?
I guess Andy Stevens is our CEO, and he's been with us a long time. He's an original investor, about 2006 time frame. He's been our business coach, best buddy along the way. So we do a lot together, and so I definitely look up to him for a lot of that business side. Um, yeah, that's one.
Cool. Last couple of questions. Are you spiritual?
Yeah, I think I do play it out within my adventures, going out and not having the headphones on, going in the wilderness and running in the snow like I did this weekend, up in the mountains. That kind of definitely feels spiritual and but I'm certainly not a devout anything, but definitely feel a higher purpose
Mm.
is out there and how uh yeah.
So in light of that, when you do pass and it's your turn to go, what is the best case scenario in your mind for what happens next, if anything?
Hmm. I think it's a continuation in a way, in terms of like we go back and we become something else. You look at a flower, and a flower was water and soil and sunlight yesterday. I don't know how to interpret that into words for the human being, but I feel not a reincarnation, but a continuation, if you will, because just a continuation.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know that obviously none of us do, but I do believe we have a purpose beyond our current life
So what is
as we
your,
know it.
yeah, what is your purpose that you feel that drives you?
Well, my purpose, like I think that's driven me all along. That's hence built my career is trying to find the potential in other people, helping them
Mm.
reach their potential. I was never the greatest pro cyclist. I tried to reach my potential, but I saw afterwards how there were a lot of faults in the way that I went about it. So I think that became my new purpose, was to help other people reach their purpose. And part of that was running a coaching business, but then now how can I help other coaches reach their potential in their business life, right? So I see myself as helping other coaches build their coaching businesses, hence that helps athletes reach their potential. So that's kind of what drives me.
Yeah, that'd be a beautiful legacy to leave behind for sure as well. Um, so final question for somebody who is like Dirk, I think I kind of want to be a coach. What advice would you give them? Sign up for Training
Uh,
Peaks and
yeah, well, first, like, learn from other coaches, interview other coaches, see what it's really like. There's many different types of coaches. There's not one type of coach. There's coaches that are just motivators. They meet with their group every Wednesday night at the track, and they do laps around the track or the swimming pool, and they're a great motivator, and they can get the person to the start line and the finish line. But then they don't know much about science, and that's okay. That they serve a wonderful purpose. Then there's coaches that are all science, and they're not there to motivate you. You're already pro. I'm just here to get 0.5% out of you, and we're gonna unturn every rock possible. And they're going after this more the science, aspect of it. So I think there's many different, I know, types of coaches. Oftentimes people think there's one type, for whatever vision they have, but there's many different ways to be a coach. So I think get out there and interview different coaches from different sports and see what resonates with you and how you would like to grow and become a coach, and then start learning, what makes those coaches that you look up to successful. Learn from them, ask questions. It's so easy in social media now to ask those questions or even meet them. Um, and then from there, like, is Training Peaks right for me? Am I ready to take on this responsibility? It's a big responsibility. That's one reason I don't coach now, is I know the responsibility it takes as a
Mm.
coach to follow through on what you say. And I was reviewing files every single day and reviewing comments every single day and making adjustments every single day. Now that was my form of coaching. That may not be right for you, but I know I couldn't do otherwise. That's just how I coach. Um, so yeah, learn, interview, and see what your vision is for what the coach you want to become. Learn
Mm.
from others.
Good stuff. Well, Dirk, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a busy man, to sit down and let me ask all kinds of questions for my own pleasure and gain. But really
Yeah,
appreciate you taking the time, man.
no, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Lot of stupid questions. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much to Dirk for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed that conversation. He's obviously very smart, has done a lot, and yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, I think that as I continue to do this podcast, I spent how to say this. I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how to ask really good questions that would have to do with Training Peaks. But I'm trying to strike this balance between like getting to know the person, but then if they are a person who has a very specific, narrow, or very specific and narrow set of expertise, obviously him being a business leader in this very specific company in this specific industry, how many questions should I ask around that versus like the interpersonal ones? I think I get a lot from both because I like entrepreneurship and I like the interpersonal stuff. But there's just so many things that I'd like to ask about, and I'm not sure if I should lengthen the podcast episodes or what. I think long term I'll probably end up going a little bit more longer form. Anyway, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but all that to say, really did enjoy the conversation with Dirk. Really appreciate you guys being here, and if you were listening to this point in the show, you're the real MVP. You are the small community that helps help me push these things out because it makes it more enjoyable when I know somebody's listening. However, even if only one person was impacted positively from this entire podcast, over 200 episodes, it'll still have all been worth it. So thanks for being here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.